What if I told you that the most powerful form of control is the one you can't see? That slavery still exists. Not in chains and whips, but in spreadsheets and paychecks. You don't believe it? Then ask yourself.
Why do you wake up with a pit in your stomach every Monday? Why does your life feel like a cycle you can't escape? Why do you feel trapped in a job you hate, but can't leave? If you're honest, it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you lack ambition. It's because something deep inside you already knows. You are not free. You live in a prison of expectations, of debt, of roles you didn't choose, of scripts you didn't write. And the worst part, you've been trained to believe that this is normal. Freedom is the ability to live with oneself. Erich Fromm. But how many people can say they truly do? From the moment you're born, you're fed a narrative. Go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a job, climb the ladder, save for retirement. Then maybe you get to enjoy life. This isn't a life, it's a conveyor belt. And the man who quietly steps off that belt, he becomes a threat, because society doesn't know what to do with someone who can't be bought, manipulated, or motivated by fear. Why? Because he's free. And freedom is dangerous to systems built on control. You may think you're chasing money, but often it's chasing you. It dangles in front of you like a carrot on a stick. Just a little more, you tell yourself. One more promotion, one more deal, one more year. But the finish line keeps moving, and you run faster and faster until you forget why you started running at all. This isn't ambition, it's addiction. Men are not free when they are doing just what they like. Men are only free when they are doing what the deepest self likes. D.H. Lawrence. So whose voice are you following? Your deepest self? Or the marketing machine that tells you what success is supposed to look like? Let me tell you about Robert. Robert had it all. Corner office, luxury car, 7-figure salary, and he was dying inside. Not metaphorically, literally. At 47, Robert had a heart attack. Not because of poor health, because of stress. Because of waking up every day to do work he loathed, for people he didn't respect, chasing numbers that didn't matter. He survived, and he changed everything. He sold the house, left the job, moved to a cabin, started teaching philosophy at a local college. Now Robert lives on a quarter of what he used to make, and he wakes up smiling. Here's a painful truth. Most people don't fear poverty. They fear looking poor. They fear losing the image, the status, the illusion of having it together. But what good is appearing successful if you're empty inside? We wear our titles like armor: manager, executive, entrepreneur. But strip away the labels and many don't know who they are. You ask someone, "Who are you?" They reply, "I'm a lawyer." No, that's what you do, not who you are. If your identity is tied to your income, your job, or your lifestyle, then you are not in control. You are owned. To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight. E. Cummings, the man who chooses to be nobody, but true, is free. You might be thinking, but I have responsibilities. Yes, we all do. But responsibility doesn't mean surrendering your soul. Fear is the system's greatest weapon. Fear of being broke, fear of being judged, fear of falling behind. So they keep you moving, producing, consuming, competing, always too busy to question it. But here's the paradox. The man who stops chasing isn't left behind. He sees the path no one else noticed. He realizes the race was optional all along. There are two kinds of lives. One where you're constantly reacting, another where you consciously create. Most people live the first. They follow the path of least resistance. They do what's expected. But the few, the very few, choose the second. They unplug. They rethink. They rebel quietly, not with rage, but with clarity. They choose fewer things, deeper conversations, slower mornings, wilder dreams. And in doing so, they become what society fears most: awake. This isn't about rejecting all money or abandoning responsibility. It's about reclaiming choice, about understanding that your value is not tied to your net worth, that productivity is not your identity, that you don't need to prove your existence through endless doing. The real revolution doesn't come with slogans. It begins in silence, when one person stands up and whispers, "Enough." When one man chooses peace over performance, depth over display, being over having. That man is dangerous, because he reminds others of what they've lost. So I ask you, When was the last time you sat in stillness, not scrolling, not working, not striving, and just asked, who am I when there's nothing to chase? What would my life look like if I stopped measuring it by someone else's yardstick? You were not born to be a cog, not born to be a worker unit, not born to be a number on a ledger. You were born to be free, to think, to feel, to build, to love. And the man who realizes this, who breaks the chains of conditioning, he becomes dangerous. Because you can't manipulate a man who doesn't fear lack. You can't enslave a soul who already knows he's enough. So what will you choose? The illusion of freedom within the system? Or the real, raw, sometimes terrifying liberation of stepping out of it? Remember, the most dangerous man is not the one with power. It's the one who no longer needs it. Why do we keep running in circles? Why do we work jobs we despise? By things we don't need? Live lives that feel borrowed, scripted, imposed? The answer is simple and brutal. Fear. Not fear of failure. Not even fear of death. But fear of not being enough. Fear of not belonging. Fear of being left behind. And society has mastered the art of monetizing it. The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what other people think. David Icke. Let's talk about that prison, because it doesn't have bars or guards. It has mortgages, status symbols, and an endless loop of social comparison. Fear is the real currency of modern life. We don't act out of freedom. We act to avoid punishment, to avoid the shame of being seen as poor, lost, or unimportant. What if people think I failed? What if they think I've wasted my potential? This fear shapes our resumes, our wardrobes, even our relationships. It turns us into characters in a performance, smiling when we're exhausted, boasting when we're afraid, agreeing when we want to scream, all to avoid one thing, rejection. But the truth is, if you're not being rejected by some, you're probably not being real with anyone. Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner. Lao Tzu. So who owns you? The people who follow you, or the ones you follow? You know the feeling. You scroll through social media. A friend just bought a house. Another is on their third vacation this year. One launched a startup. Another sold theirs. And suddenly your own life feels small, stale, like you missed a memo everyone else got. That's by design. Comparison fuels consumption. It makes you buy more, work harder, sleep less, smile less. It keeps you on the treadmill, running, 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 but never arriving. Let's be honest, most of the economy is built on making you feel inadequate. Billions are spent to convince you that you're not tall enough, not lean enough, not rich enough, not smart enough, not good enough. And guess what? They have just the product to fix it. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to wake up to the game. Advertising is the art of convincing people to spend money they don't have for something they don't need. Well, Rogers, they sell to your fear, and we keep buying. But every transaction of fear leaves you poorer, not just in money, but in meaning. This one's harder to admit, but some of us are afraid to be free, because freedom means taking full responsibility. It means losing the excuses, the structure, the comfort of blaming the system. Freedom means facing the vast unknown, facing yourself. So we stay in our routines, our boxes, our cages, because they're familiar, predictable, safe. But that safety is an illusion. People prefer a predictable hell to an unknown heaven. Author unknown. So ask yourself, would you rather be safe and numb, or alive and uncertain? There's a reason society doesn't know what to do with the man who steps out of the system, who stops chasing titles, who walks away from a six-figure job to live in a cabin, who rejects the algorithm. He becomes a mirror, and people hate mirrors when they're not proud of their reflection. He shows them a life lived on his own terms, and that terrifies them, because if he can do it, why aren't they? He doesn't bow to fear, and that makes him powerful, not because he owns much, but because nothing owns him. Henry left the city. He had a law degree, offers on the table, connections in high places. Instead, he moved to a small plot near a lake, built a modest home, grew his own food, read philosophy, wrote, walked. People called him lazy, idealistic, irresponsible, but Henry David Thoreau didn't care. He lived more fully in 2 years at Walden Pond than most people do in a lifetime. And his legacy? It's still echoing, still challenging, still threatening the norm. Governments, corporations, media, they all use fear. Fear of disease, fear of scarcity, fear of the other, fear of missing out. Because fear makes people compliant, predictable, obedient. But not you. Not anymore. Because the moment you see fear as a product, something sold to you, you can stop buying it. This isn't about abandoning everything. It's about choosing deliberately, saying no to the fear that tells you, you'll be nothing without that job. No one will love you if you walk away. You'll fail if you stop grinding. It's all a lie. Here's the truth. You become powerful the moment you stop needing their approval. You become dangerous the moment you start defining success for yourself. Because a man who is no longer afraid cannot be controlled. So how do you escape? First, by noticing. What are you afraid of? Whose voice is it in your head? Is it even yours? Second, by experimenting. Turn off the noise. Spend a weekend offline. Speak an unpopular truth. Wear the same clothes for a week. Say, I don't know out loud. What does it mean to succeed? Is it the corner office? The car? The followers? The numbers in your bank account? Or is it something else entirely? From the day we're born, the world hands us a definition of success. Go to school. Get good grades. Get a job. Climb the ladder. Retire. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be happy. But look around. How many people who followed that path are truly fulfilled? How many feel alive? How many wake up with a sense of purpose? The truth? Very few. Because most of them weren't chasing their dream. They were chasing someone else's expectation. They were running a race they never chose, toward a finish line they never defined. You've been told success is about achievement. But what if it's about alignment? Not about how much you produce, but about how deeply you live. Not about how many know your name, but about how well you know yourself. You see, there's a kind of success that doesn't show up on LinkedIn. It can't be captured in a photo or listed on a resume. It's quiet. It's internal. It's honest. It's the man who walks away from wealth to pursue art. The woman who leaves the city to raise her children close to nature. The teacher who stays late with a student no one else believes in. These people are rarely celebrated, but they are succeeding in the truest sense of the word. Because they're not chasing life. They're living it. We've been taught to measure our worth by comparison. Who's ahead? Who's behind? But life isn't a race. It's not linear. It's not standardized. There is no universal scoreboard. Yet we behave like there is. We wake up with anxiety because we haven't made it. But what does made it even mean? To whom? By what metric? A man working 80 hours a week for a title he hates isn't winning. He's just tired. A woman who owns 10 properties but hasn't taken a deep breath in 5 years isn't thriving. She's just surviving. Success is not about having more. It's about needing less. It's not about doing what's impressive. It's about doing what's important to you. If you strip away the applause, the salary, the validation, what remains? That's the real question. Because if your success depends on external approval, it's not really yours. You're renting it, and it can be taken away. But if it's built on values, on purpose, on inner clarity, it's unshakable. That's the success worth striving for. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize they've been chasing shadows. They've been living a borrowed story. And in that moment, you can either double down or begin again. It's not too late. You're not behind. You're right on time. But you need to ask yourself, what does success mean to you? Not to your parents, not to your boss, not to your followers, to you. Maybe it's simplicity. Maybe it's impact. Maybe it's freedom. Whatever it is, own it. Name it. Build your life around it. Because if you don't define success for yourself, someone else will, and their version might cost you your soul. Imagine waking up each day and knowing you're living your values. You're doing what matters. You're not pretending. You're not performing. You're just being. Fully. Boldly. Honestly. That's what success feels like. It's peace. It's power. It's purpose. And no amount of status or money can substitute for it. So redefine it. Redraw the map. Reroute the journey. Choose meaning over metrics. Choose presence over prestige. Choose truth over trends. Because the most successful people aren't always the ones at the top. They're the ones who stopped climbing a ladder that wasn't leaning against the right wall. They stepped back, looked inward, and chose a path with heart. That can be you. But first, you have to be brave enough to ask, what if the world's idea of success isn't mine? He doesn't chase money. He doesn't obey trends. He doesn't seek permission. And because of that, he's dangerous. Not to you, not to himself, but to the system. Because he doesn't need what they're selling. He's not buying the dream. He's not subscribing to the fear. He is the threat that can't be controlled. You know the kind of man I'm talking about. He walks into a room and says little, but means everything. He listens more than he speaks. He values solitude over spectacle. He's calm, not because life is easy, but because he knows who he is. This man is a mirror to the world, and the world doesn't like what it sees, because he exposes the emptiness of noise, the shallowness of approval, the bankruptcy of chasing more. He is, by simply being himself, a challenge to the entire narrative. Society depends on your insecurity, your constant need for affirmation, your fear of stepping out of line. But this man doesn't play along. He doesn't run the race. He walks his own path, not because he's lazy, but because he's awake. He sees the chains for what they are, comfortable lies. When you ask him what he doesn't flinch if the answer isn't impressive. When you ask about his plans, he doesn't need to impress you with milestones. He's not selling a brand. He's living a life. And you can't sell that. You can't tax that. You can't manipulate that. You can only fear it or follow it. This man is a danger not because he breaks laws, but because he breaks illusions. He breaks the illusion that success requires sacrifice of self. He breaks the illusion that freedom is a destination. He breaks the illusion that your worth is conditional. You can't market to him, because he's not trying to fill a void. He's not trying to become someone else. He's already home. In a society built on scarcity, a man who needs little is powerful. In a culture of distraction, a man who is present is radical. In a world of noise, a man who is silent is rebellious. He doesn't conform. He creates. He doesn't obey. He understands. He doesn't hate the world. He just refuses to be swallowed by it. And so the world calls him names. Unambitious, strange, dangerous. But what they're really saying is, he makes us uncomfortable. He reminds us of what we gave up. This man doesn't argue. He doesn't need to convince. He doesn't fight. He simply lives. And in that act, he threatens everything. Because his life poses the ultimate question. What if you don't need what they say you need? What if you're already enough? What if freedom was never something to earn, but something to reclaim? He may not be rich, but he owns himself. And that kind of wealth can't be counted. He doesn't care if you understand him, because he didn't choose this path to be seen. He chose it because it's true. He knows the cost, the solitude, the misunderstanding, the loss of belonging in the mainstream. But he also knows the reward: peace, clarity, truth. He knows that a life of quiet rebellion is worth more than decades of obedient noise. He's not a prophet. He's not a guru. He's just a man who chose to stop lying to himself. And that honesty, that courage is rare. Too rare. Because most people are terrified to look at their own lives and ask, is this truly mine? But this man has already asked, and answered, and acted. He's not against society. He simply no longer depends on it for identity. He's not escaping. He's returning. Returning to what matters. To what's real. To a life that cannot be bought. To values that can't be shaken. To a center that doesn't move when the world spins. And because he's unshaken, he is untouchable. You can fire him. You can insult him. You can ignore him. But you cannot control him. Because you cannot tempt a man who's not hungry for your approval. You cannot scare a man who's already faced himself. He is the ultimate threat, not because he wants to destroy the system, but because he's no longer willing to be its servant. He redefines wealth, redefines time, redefines worth, and in doing so, invites others to remember. They can too. Not all men are dangerous, but the one who lives his truth without apology, he is. He is the spark they can't put out, the example they can't erase, the voice they can't silence. He is free, and nothing terrifies the system more than a man who no longer needs it.